By now, got a big old heart, this I know for sure, but I don't know what my love is for. Should know by now. Well, I wait in line so I can wait some more, till I can't remember what I came here for. But I can't leave now, 'cause I have a light that shines and a love so pure, but I don't know what to use them for. before should know by now. Well, I spent my money, I lost my friends, I broke my mobile phone. 3 a.m. and I'm drunk as hell, and I'm dancing on my own. Taxi cabs ain't stopping it, I don't know my way home. Well, it's hard to find a reason when all you have is doubts. It's hard to look inside yourself when you can't see your way out. It's hard to find the answer when the question won't come out. Well, everyone's filling me up with noise, I don't know what they're talking about. Everyone's filling me up with noise, I don't know what they're talking about. Everyone's filling me up with noise, I don't know what they're talking about. You see, all I need is a whisper in a world that only shouts.
That blows me away. Way to be brave from the go. Good work, team. We like questions around here. We like that you ask them. We ask them ourselves. We're going to keep going with songs. Aaron just wrote a song that has a question in it. Could there be more than what I know? And give us a little bit more context behind this song.
Yeah, so the song is actually from a book in the Bible called Isaiah, and it's from Isaiah 55. And in that chapter, there's a promise from God that says, if you seek me, you will find me. But, I often feel that, can it really actually be that simple? So, I wanted to write a song that just asked honest questions.
It's awesome. Let's keep asking questions. Why don't you guys stand and sing this with us?
All right, I want to teach you guys the chorus. Starts off with seek the Lord. Let's sing it. Seek the Lord and he will be found. Call upon him, he will draw near, yeah. Seek the Lord and he will be found. He shows us mercy and compassion. Whoa. All right, you guys know it now. Let's sing it together. Sing, seek the Lord. Seek the Lord and he will be found. Call upon him, he will draw near, yeah. Seek the Lord and he will be found. He shows us mercy and compassion. Whoa. Hey! Sing, we are hungry. We are hungry for so much more. Nothing we have satisfies. We are thirsty for healing water. Can it be found without a price? Is there more? Is there more? much more. We're working harder every day. We are searching for deeper meaning. Help us understand your ways. Is there more? Is there more than what we know? Seek the Lord and He will be found. Call upon Him, He will draw near. Yeah. Seek the Lord and He will be found. Shows His mercy and compassion. Can we find joy in this lifetime? Can we find peace in the storm? Lord, help us find You. Help us listen and be still. Seek the Lord. Seek the Lord and He will be found. Call upon Him, He will draw near. Yeah. Seek the Lord and He will be found. Call upon Him, He will draw near. Seek the Lord and He will be found. He shows His mercy and compassion. Whoa. Hey! Shine your light into the dark. Speak Your truth into my heart. I want to know who You are. Shine Your light into the dark. Speak Your truth into my heart. I want to know who You are. Open my eyes so I can see. Open my ears so I can hear. I give my heart to You. Sing, I want to know. I want to know who You are. I want to know who You are. Oh, show me who You are. Shine Your light into the dark. Speak Your truth into my heart. I want to know who You are. Open my eyes so I can see. Open my ears so I can hear. I give my heart to You. Sing, I want to know. I want to know who You are. I want to know who You are. And show me who You are. Open my eyes so I can see. Open my ears I can hear you. Give my heart to you. Sing that again. Open my eyes so I can see you. Open my ears so I can hear you. I give my heart to you. Yeah, I want to know who you are. I want to know who you are. Show me who you are. Sing it one more time. I want to know. I want to know who you are. I want to know who you are. Oh, show me who you are. God, that is my prayer for this morning. God, that you would show us who you are. God, that you would see those words that we just sang, that maybe we just read, maybe we internalized some of those things. God, that you would just see those words as a simple prayer, just saying, we want to know you. And God, I just ask that you would answer that prayer by revealing yourself to us today, maybe even for the very, very first time. So we just thank you so much. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, thanks for singing, everybody. If you wouldn't mind squeezing into the middle of your row, we still have plenty of people coming in, and you don't want that awkward butt-touching thing when people slide over you. So just do yourself a favor, and then say hey to somebody around you and grab your seat. Glad you're here.
Well, good morning, guys. You guys are still texting in, and Amazon is telling me what the lightning deals for today are. Great. My name is Matt. The signs didn't lie. I'm on the creative team here at Crossroads, and we are glad you're here. I hope you're starting to think, yeah, this is going to be a good weekend for me to be here. I would just love to give you some rails for how to understand Crossroads, how to get connected, maybe take a next step around here. The first thing I want you to know about is a team called WizKids. WizKids is a group of adults here who tutor young students in Cincinnati who need a little bit of extra help. They talk to them and teach them about things like reading and math and science, and you are qualified for this role. And the great thing is test scores improve in these kids' lives, but the ripple effect is that our city gets changed. And if you want to be a part of this, there's actually an info session today at 1 o'clock, and you have to sign up by Monday. So if you're a procrastinator, you have no time for that. I would highly recommend this. Getting connected in WizKids. If you're an Eastsider, I have an Eastside only McNick graduate. You don't actually have to graduate from there, but if you live in Anderson or anywhere on the East Side and you want to get connected in with that community, they are having an event called a Grill and Go. Here's how it works. You sign up for the Grill and Go, you RSVP, we'll send you an email with a neighbor's house. You are going to go over there for dinner. They are going to cook a boatload of meat. You are going to bring a side dish. Frivolity will ensue. You'll have a wonderful dinner. After dinner's over, everyone will pack up in a car and drive to the Anderson Center, where you'll have dessert and hang out with a larger group of people. And I'm also told there's going to be like a peppermint schnapps hot chocolate sort of system going on. So if you are an Anderson person, get connected, get to know your neighbors, and start creating community over there and begin to belong. Sign up for the Grill and Go sometime today. RSVPs for that close tonight, and it's happening October 4th. These are all opportunities to sort of connect and go to the next place. For me, the first time I went to a next place at Crossroads was when I signed up in First Impressions to serve coffee. First Impressions is our team out here that kind of makes this place a little bit more like home. They brewed our coffee, helped you find a parking spot, got you in here, maybe you found a seat. There's tons of different roles there. And if you are looking for a way to grow over the next few weeks, I highly recommend taking the plunge and signing up with First Impressions. There is literally a role for everyone. no matter what you like, dislike, can do, can't do, what your time commitment is, if you want to make this place feel smaller, you want to get to know people, and you want to grow personally, there is no better way to do that than signing up to serve in First Impressions. And here is how you can do it. Go to crossroads.net/make-it-happen, because that's literally what volunteers do around here. They make this place happen, and peruse all the different roles that you can get involved in. There's a way to connect on the website, and we will make it really easy for you to get in and serve for your first time. So I highly, highly recommend that. In a moment, we're going to do a weird church thing where there's going to be offering bags that come down your aisles, and that can be really kind of awkward. Around here, if you're new, the way we look at this isn't as a weird obligation. This is our opportunity to fuel all the things that are happening around Crossroads. Things like WizKids and creating an environment like this where we can ask real questions, and we do that all across the city. And so if you're someone who's been here for a week or 10 years and you want to put some of your fuel behind those things, you think they're important, you're going to have an opportunity to do so. You can give online at crossroads.net/give. You can put something in the basket, whatever works best for you. While we do that, we're going to take a look at a video that's going to catch us up on what we're talking about in this next series. Glad you're here.
We've all wondered what's next at some point in our lives. We get this vague sense that we're missing out, stuck in dead-end jobs, lifeless relationships, stale routines. Our grooves become ruts. We run ourselves in circles, looking for something new, fresh for that next step. So, what is next? What if we were wired for growth? What if asking what's next is what we were meant to do? What if the answer to what's next, whether we're looking for direction in dating, school, jobs, friendships, or family, was a spiritual one? Each of our spiritual journeys are unique, but they also have a lot in common. First, we seek. We ask questions. We search for the truth. We admit that we don't have the answers, but hope beyond hope that an answer exists. Eventually, we begin to trust and take a leap of faith to receive the truth of who God is and who we are. We let God love us. We start believing Jesus is who he says he is in the Bible and begin receiving our true identities as God's beloved children. The next step is to follow. When we follow, we quit negotiating and take action. We trust that God will guide us and we do what he says. We get disciplined, we work hard, we obey, and our lives are transformed. Now it is time to produce. God wants us to share what we know with our friends, helping them to seek, encouraging them to receive, and showing them what it means to follow. What's next? Seeking, receiving, following, producing. 4 simple steps taken over and over, transforming us into who God designed us to be, a team of producers who go after kingdom projects like flipping our city and changing the world.
Hey Oakley, that's what we're talking about in this series. We're talking about this journey that we're all on and what it looks like to be on a spiritual journey where we are seeking, receiving, following, and becoming producers of the kind of life that Jesus lived. And today, we're diving into the first step of the process, seeking. And there is no better person to talk to us about this than my friend Kyle Ranson. You may not know Kyle's name, you may not know him personally, but you know his work because his fingerprints are on everything that happens around here. So Kyle leads the experience team. So video, music, lighting, sound, teaching, stage, everything rolls up through him. And this is a guy who has a heart and a passion for creating an environment where people not only seek, but find Jesus. So welcome my friend, Kyle Ranson.
So when I first saw that video, I was like, crap, that's a high bar. No one better than me to talk about this. Let me just tell you, there is someone better. I'm just going to lower that bar a little bit. Makes me feel better. I am part of this team. I've been part of this team for about 9 years in a staff context, and I absolutely love it. I love this team. We're just a group of people who are honestly trying to find God in a real, tangible way. And it's a team that started with a really great question. I don't know if you know this story, but about 18 years ago, there was these 2 guys. They're in a car, they're driving down Columbia Parkway, and they pull over to the side of the road, and they ask this question. They say, does church have to be done the way it's always been done? And what would a church experience that connects with our friends look like? What would that be like? You know, every great adventure in life starts with a great question. It really does. See if you can guess the adventures here. One question was, what happens if I sail my boat over the horizon? Do I really fall off the end of the earth? Or do I land in India? That was Columbus, right? Or guys in this room, those of us who are married, one of our life's great adventures started with the question, will you marry me? Right? Or perhaps one of the most important questions of the 20th century, I personally believe, was the brave soul who ventured to ask the question, what happens if a fork and a spoon just got freaky and had a love child? What would we have? What are the possibilities, you know? And now we have sporks, and everyone's like mildly satisfied with that. It was meh. One of the adventures in my life started with a great question. It was exactly how far away is Canada? That was the question. I was 21. I was at college. I went to college at Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. It's Sunday night, right before finals week. Plenty of stuff to do, right? Plenty of work. Study needs to be done. And yet, the night kind of began like every night does at college with another question, which is, so what do you guys want to do tonight? Like, we can do anything, you know? And so somebody asked this question, and we sort of talked for a while. It was Sunday night, not much is open, so options are kind of limited. And then somebody asked this question, well, exactly how far away is Canada? And fierce debate rages. I was like, oh, it's 14 hours, 18 hours, 21 hours. You have to get there through Montana, no New York. And then, like, does Michigan connect to Canada? Or we don't really know. Like, no one's looked at a map in a long time, you know? And so somebody, my friend Joe, who's like, he's the logical, sensible one, he's like, let's ask the internet. The internet. This is before smartphones were in your pocket, so he has to run off to his room. And he comes back approximately 2 minutes later. And he's clutching a printout from Google Maps in his hand. And he holds it up like the Statue of Liberty within victory, and he's like, Google Maps says 11 hours and 51 minutes. He slams it down. And we're just like, okay, well. And we did the only logical thing to do at that moment, which is we got in the car and we drove to Canada. Because we wanted to see, is that right? Is that accurate? It turns out it was a little bit off, actually. It took more like 12 hours. We hit some snow in northern Ohio. I was driving when we crossed the border into Canada. And this is before you needed a passport, right? So it's just 4 Georgia boys in a car. We didn't even pack any bags. Like, we literally just got in the car and just, whoo! See how long it takes. And so we pull up to the border crossing. I'm driving. I roll the window down. Border agent kind of leans out. She looks at us funny. We hand over the licenses, and she goes, what's your business in Canada? It's a valid question at that point. What's your business in Canada? And it was one of those moments in life where you're sort of like, am I going to be a person of integrity or not? Like, how deeply do I believe in honesty, you know? What's your business in Canada? So I thought about it. I was like, no, I'm going to be honest. It's about noon. We're pretty hungry. We didn't plan for this. So I just said, well, we just wanted to get some lunch. And she, right? Yeah, I don't know. And she looked at me and she was like, you drove all the way from Atlanta for lunch? And I was like, yeah, we did. We really did. And she led us into the country with that. Like, if you're Canadian, I hope that just deeply frightens you. Your national security sucks. It's terrible. And just Americans, that's not the way it worked on the way back in. On the way back in, we tried the honesty strategy. What did you do in Canada? We had lunch, and they went, awesome. Pull over there. We need to search your car. Like drug dogs and everything. It was different. It was really different. But that's how every great adventure starts. A really great question. What's the last really great question you've asked in your life? What's the last really great question you've asked God? And I love the thing we did at the beginning with Matt's phone up here. We had no idea how that was going to go, if anyone would text in or anything. And it's blown us away every service. Just the questions that pour in, it's incredible. When was the last time you asked a big question before that? And had you stopped at any point? You know, research is showing right now conclusively something that us parents who have young children have always known, which is that your question-asking skills, and it is a skill, hits at its peak at the age of 4. The age of 4, right? Yeah. Oh, obviously. I happen to have a 4-year-old. I have 3 kids, and the oldest one is 4, actually. We don't sleep much at my house, but we do get lots of questions. The 4-year-old always asks questions. He is like stuck on the question, why? So it goes like this. This is a typical scenario. I say, Benjamin, eat your green beans. And he goes, why? And I say, because green beans are good for you. And he says, why? And I say, because they're green vegetables and all green vegetables are good for you. And he goes, why? And I go, I don't know. I have no idea, you know? Like, I literally don't. Like having a 4-year-old in your child, a skilled question asker, just exposes how stupid you really are. It is very frustrating and humbling. He asked me this great question the other day. It was a fun, I think it was a great question. It's a crude story, so I apologize in advance. I'm going to tell it anyway because I'm up here and I get to say what I want. So he recently learned to use the potty. And it's a fascinating new world of discovery. It really is. It's amazing. He loves the potty. And so the other day, this is like 2-3 days ago, he runs out of the bathroom, and he runs up to me, and he goes, Daddy, come look at my poop. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just the best thing. I don't want to squash his enthusiasm, so I was like, okay, buddy, well, that's great. What's amazing about it? He goes, it exploded into 1,000,000 pieces. That has never happened before. That's never happened. Let's go look at it. I was like, okay. So me and the 4-year-old and the 2-year-old, we run in the bathroom and we hunker down over the toilet. I'm trying to keep them from dunking their faces in it, and we're like staring at it. And then he asked me this great question. He looks up at me and he goes, Daddy, why did it explode into 1,000,000 pieces? And once again, I was like, I have no idea. Fiber, maybe? I don't really know. I'm not entirely certain. Here's the thing about Benjamin, though. Benjamin has no filter. He has no filter. He hasn't learned the rules yet about, what's okay to ask and what's not okay and where to ask it and all that stuff, right? He hasn't learned the rules. Do you remember before you had learned the rules, when you asked whatever came into your brain at any moment? When you're 4, maybe, and you just asked before you learned the rules? There's a tragedy that happens to all of us. I think it's the reason why we peak with this skill at the age of 4. We start to learn the rules. When we learn which questions are okay to ask and which questions aren't. And it's actually a tragedy. Because as it turns out, question asking is the key skill to innovation, which I would propose to you is innovation is getting to the next place. And question asking is the key skill. It's a great book I've been reading. It's called A More Beautiful Question. It's written by this guy. He's written for the Harvard Business Review. Smart guy, consulted with lots of folks. And he said this about question asking. He says, we must try to maintain or rekindle the curiosity, sense of wonder, inclination to try new things, and the ability to adapt that served us so well in childhood. We must become, in a word, neotenous. Neoteny being a biological term that describes the retention of childlike attributes in adulthood. To do so, we must rediscover the tool that served us so well in those early years. The question. There's this scene in the Bible where Jesus is he's talking with his disciples, and they're arguing. It happened quite a lot, actually. They were kind of arguing about stuff, and they were fighting over who has the greatest faith in Jesus' opinion. In his world, who has the greatest kind of faith? Who's the greatest? That's what they wanted to know. Who's the best? Who gets the closest to God? And he gave a really interesting answer. Keep in mind the quote we just read. Here's what he said. Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, I don't think that means you have to be naive and simple-minded. I don't think that's what he means, because that'd be a kind of a cruel trick to play if you're God. Because what happens to us as we age is that our brains grow, and they grow and function. They're able to compute more complex problems and assimilate more divergent bits of data together and create patterns and understanding, right? That's what happens. So I don't think that God would wire our brains to do this and then ask us to fight against that to find him. That seems like a strange trick. What I think Jesus is getting at here is become like a child, asking a million unfiltered questions. Jesus is the only major religious figure that I know of who begs for questions. He actually begs for questions. He wants us to ask him things. This is how he said it in one spot, super clear. So I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. I think that's the most incredible promise ever made, in the history of the universe ever made, if it's true. And that's what I want to persuade you of today. I just want you to walk out of here believing one thing, and that is, if you will seek God, you will find him. If you seek God, you will find him. I'm going to pray about that before we go any further. Father, thank you for folks who walked in here. I think even just investing an hour of time to sit here is a way of seeking. And I just ask that there be a return on that investment, that all of us in here would know you more for having been here. We love you. Amen. Okay. Now, here's the thing about seeking. Here's what you need to know. Seeking is not safe. Seeking isn't safe. It's really not safe. Because if you're going to seek, like really seek, the kind that finds God, you not only have to ask questions, you have to ask unfiltered questions. You have to be like my son Benjamin. You have to ask whatever comes into your mind. So it's not safe. I actually wanted this first point to be, seeking is asking dangerous, honest, real, noble, unfiltered, and sometimes emotionally charged questions, not the sanitized, safe, unsatisfying crap. Otherwise, you'll just get sanitized, safe, and unsatisfying answers. But they said that would look terrible on a slide. So I said, try anyway. And then this is what they did. And I had this humbling moment of realizing I'm not tall enough to have that point. I can't quite pop over it. So I stuck with seeking isn't safe. Actually, I also considered don't practice safe seeking. I thought that made, whatever. Seeking isn't safe. Now, there are two ways to seek God. There are two ways. There is a safe way. There's a safe way. There's an unsafe way, and there's a safe way. The safe way, I'll call the textbook method of finding God. Textbook method. Now, the textbook method, the idea is that God is sort of like a list of formal answers that you need to memorize. That's kind of what God is like. And the image of him is sort of as this spiritual professor in the sky who is grading us on the correctness of our answers to the right questions, the right answers to the right questions. And based on some arbitrary line where no one's exactly sure, you want to have a certain percentage of your answers correct to the right questions. And if you sort of go above the bar, you pass and you get into heaven. And then if you below the bar, you fail and you don't. That's the textbook method. It's a textbook method. The textbook method, there's kind of some hot debate in that world because exactly what the right questions are and exactly what the right answers are is kind of hard to parse because rather inconveniently, the Bible doesn't have a list of them. Like there's no book in the Bible called The Right Answers to the Right Questions. There's not. It actually turns out the Bible is a collection of messy stories about messy people told over thousands of years, most of whom never really arrive at the right answers about God, but he kind of seems to love them anyway. So why do people adopt the textbook method? Why would you do that? Well, number one, like I said, it's safe. It's safe. There's no real wrestling or struggle involved. You kind of pick an edition of the textbook that makes the most sense to you for whatever reason. You mentally assent to all of the answers in that textbook, and then you just kind of hang on in life. And you hope that nothing comes your way that shatters those answers. And if it does, you kind of suppress it and you keep it down and you just keep agreeing with that answer. That's what you do. And if you can make it to your deathbed, more or less, still agreeing to most or all of those questions, chances are you've got a mansion in heaven waiting for you. That's the textbook method. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with the textbook method. If you go searching using the textbook method of faith, you will only find a textbook God. That's what you'll find. He'll be very neat and very tidy. He'll be really easy to understand and organize. But he'll also be uninspiring and impersonal and cold and distant. And he'll be very difficult to love. If you ever or currently, if you find yourself in a spot where you feel emotionally flat towards God, and I've been here a lot in my life, emotionally flat towards God, you may have inadvertently fallen into this camp, this textbook method camp, safe camp. Thankfully, there's another way, though. There is the unsafe way, unsafe, unfiltered method of seeking God. This is the method that everyone in the Bible, without exception, and throughout all of history who's ever found God, it's the method they used. And here's the key. It's actually pretty simple to understand. What you do is you approach God like a multifaceted, dynamic person to be known, not a list of answers to be memorized. Not a list of answers to be memorized. Now, the problem is there's kind of this religious lie that has said that if you approach God in an unsafe way, if you ask him unsafe questions, he might be offended. And so the best strategy is to kind of suppress difficult emotions like disappointment or anything that feels not good around God. And it's a tragedy. I want to kind of compare and contrast these two methods, unsafe method and the textbook method. So I have a friend. I actually have more than just one friend. I want you to know. A lot of people like me, actually. I have a friend named John. Now, John, here's some answers about John, some facts. John is 27. John has brown hair. John's a drummer. And John's very witty, super quick-witted. Those are the correct answers about John. Or are they? Do you think? I mean, do you think those are the correct answers? I'm telling you that they are. You could choose to believe me because I have a microphone on and Chuck said I'm incredible and I have a sensible haircut, and so I must be, I'm not too crazy. Those are actually, just go with me, those are the right answers about John. But I'll ask you another question. Do you know John? Having that list of answers, do you now know John? No, you don't. That's the simple answer. You might know some answers about John, but knowing that list of answers and knowing John are wildly different things. They're wildly different things. Do you know how you actually get to know someone? Like in a deep, meaningful, real way? You spend a lot of time with them, and you ask them a lot of questions. And when they ask you questions, you give them like real, unsafe, unfiltered answers. Like you get vulnerable with them, and you share stuff, like really meaningful stuff, like your deepest fears and your highest hopes and your biggest dreams. And you celebrate with them when there's wins that come in your life, and you sit in the dumps when you fail. That's how you get to know somebody. Now the tragedy is that a lot of us feel like we can't do that with God. We can't approach him that way. It's too dangerous. It's a tragedy. And like I said, it's not in the Bible. Anybody ever heard of David? David and Goliath fame? Kind of a big deal. Big deal. He shows up a lot in the first half of the Bible, the Old Testament. He wrote a whole book in there called Psalms, which is sort of like, it's like his conversation back and forth with God. And David asks a lot of unsafe, unfiltered questions. Here's just one example. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? That's Psalm 13. There's even like some accusation in there, right? Like, how did you forget me? Like, that seems unsafe, even offensive. Even offensive. But do you know what God called David? How he described him? He said, David is a man after my own heart. That's what he said. Now, I think that has two meanings. I think that means both that David is a man who is like God in some way. He has characteristics like him. And at the same time, David is after God. He wants to go to the next place with him. He's determined to get there. He'll ask him any question he has to get to him. That's David. That's the model. Me in my life, like I said, I've kind of keep discovering these spots where I've been inadvertently using the textbook method and trying to grow in my skill of using the unsafe method. One of those areas for me is science. When I first came to Crossroads about 10 years ago, somebody was standing on a stage like this, and I heard them say something that was so refreshing. It was so refreshing to me. They said, at Crossroads, we don't want you to check your brain at the door. Don't check your brain at the door. And that felt so good to me because I've been in so many church contexts, and I felt like what I was supposed to do was check my brain and walk in and just accept the list of answers. That was kind of the goal. And here it felt entirely different. I just want to say that's still what we want to, the ethic we want to hold here. Don't check your brain at the door. Don't check your brain at the door. So I've been exploring science along those lines in an unsafe way. Unsafe because I don't know if you know this, most scientists don't believe what I believe. That most scientists are atheists. But the last 300 years of science has happened. We know a lot more about the universe and the way it works and how old it is and how big it is and all those sorts of things. And God makes this claim in the Bible in several places. He says, if you'll look for me in creation, if you will study the universe, the basic building blocks, the cosmos, everything, you'll see evidence of me. And I'm an artist. I made this thing, and it's beautiful. And if you'll go looking, you'll find me there. So I started asking that question. I said, okay, God, is that true? Can I find you in science? Can I find you in studying creation? and I'm finding him that way. I read this interesting book. I've been reading physics books, which, by the way, don't do at the beach. It's terrible. It'll ruin your beach vacation. Physics books are not beach reading. Very, very, very confusing sometimes. But this is a great one that I found. It's called The Elegant Universe. It's by a physicist named Brian Greene. Brian is super smart guy. And in this book, he's not a believer in Jesus, by the way. He's an atheist. But he describes this universe that is so intricate and so detailed and so amazing. He calls it elegant and beautiful. He even says in one spot that if you look at the basic building blocks like corks and stuff, you have to conclude that nothing is accidental. It's amazing to me. I'm wading into unsafe territory, and I'm finding God there. The other big one for me is around prayer. I had this moment this summer where I discovered I've kind of had a textbook answer about prayer, and it wasn't working. It was more or less if I ask God for something and He likes me enough, He'll answer. That's what I thought. But there was a problem with that because I had a mounting list of evidence that he wasn't listening. I had a lot of disappointment around praying for stuff and not seeing anything happen. One of them was with my wife and pregnancy. See, every time she gets pregnant, which is 3 times now, she gets massive heartburn, which leads to insomnia, which is awful. Like for months and months and months, no sleeping, right before a newborn comes. It's bad news. And we prayed almost every night, all 3 pregnancies, every night that God would take away the heartburn and help her sleep. And He hasn't. Nothing's happened. No wins there. That's disappointment. Second one was around friends who were pregnant, and everything was fine until it wasn't. And there was complications, and we prayed for the safety of that kid, but they ended up having a miscarriage. Anyway, disappointment. It's hard. It's really hard. The biggest one was about 5 or 6 years ago. My father-in-law struggled with depression, like a lot of folks do. And we prayed a lot for him and with him that he have victory there, and he kind of win that battle, but he didn't. He ended up taking his own life. And that's a real massive disappointment. It's a real massive disappointment. And so what we had done in our house, we believed in prayer, that you could pray for us and God might listen, or we could pray for you for something in your world and He might listen to us. But when it came to us asking for stuff for us, like, that's not really what He was into. And so disappointment sucks. It just does. So we decided the way not to be disappointed is just to not ask. If you don't ask, you can't be disappointed when nothing happens. That's kind of where we were. But then we hit this kind of wall, this kind of moment in our lives that exposed that to us. We were selling our house this past summer, listed it for sale, which is a stressful experience. If you've never done it, I don't recommend it. Listed our house for sale, and all of our neighbors' houses had been selling in one day, like literally one day. And they all told us, oh, your house is going to sell so fast. It's the nicest one on the block. And we were like, you're totally right. It is the nicest one on the block. Thank you very much for noticing that and finally calling it out. Surely ours will sell in an hour. But an hour went by and it didn't sell. And a day went by and it didn't sell. And then the next day, it didn't sell. And then a week goes by and it didn't sell. And I'm like planting flowers to try to make it sell, doing all the little tricks, and it's not happening. A month goes by and it's not sold, and we're getting frustrated and disappointed. And somewhere in the midst of that, this question was pressed into the back of my mind. And I took a risk and I went, okay, I'm going to assume that might be God trying to grab my attention. And the question was, why aren't you asking me for help? That was the question. Oh, okay, well, God, if that's you trying to talk to me, I guess it's because I don't think that you will, and I just don't want to be disappointed anymore. And but I felt like I didn't want to stop there, so I felt like I should start praying for the house to sell. So my wife and I did. We started praying, and we prayed for days and weeks and even months after that, and nothing happened. And so we were growing more and more disappointed. And then I prayed this final prayer right before the breakthrough moment. Final prayer. Maybe the most honest prayer I've ever prayed. I just said, God, cut me an effing break. That's what I said. Not very safe. But I didn't get smited. I'm still here. So maybe that's still coming. I don't know. And mom, effing, that's the kids, that's just freaking, that's all it means. That's it. So that's it. So I prayed this prayer, and literally within 5 minutes, I got the most tangible answer to a specific prayer I've ever prayed in my life before. Got exactly what we were asking for our house, an offer, just like that. It was amazing, and I was sitting there, and in that moment, this other new thought slammed its way into the back of my mind, and it was an incredible thought. It was, I am the God who hears you. I am the God who hears you. My textbook answer on prayer is gone, and it's replaced with like a real dynamic, almost like a conversation with a person who I know now, and I know loves me and hears me. It's so much better. It's so much better, but it's not safe, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You know, what if there really were no rules? Like we asked, what if there really were no rules? What would you ask God? What if you could ask him anything? You know, what if you could ask him anything? Again, I love those questions in the beginning that were sent in. I do have to tell you something, though, about seeking, that seeking is self-funded. See, seeking is self-funded. You have to self-fund it with your time and your money. If you really want to find an answer, you have to self-fund it. We know this about everything else, that you have to self-fund it, but we think somehow God is different. I'll give you an example. Something else that I saw, this is sort of embarrassing. When I was in college, I was really seeking a six-pack, like this kind, you know? Because I was like, the ladies are going to love this. This is going to be awesome. So what I did is I invested time and I invested money in order to gain the physical prowess I was looking for. I joined something called the Barbell Club, which is $75 a semester. It was like this dingy, dirty, I mean, it just smelled like man, you know what I mean? Like it just smelled like man in there in the basement. $75 a semester, and then like an hour or two every night lifting weights, trying to get a six-pack, which never happened because I had this sort of conflict in my world where my desire for this six-pack conflicted with my desire for a different kind of six-pack. Still the case, and so still no six-pack, but there you go. And actually, I don't know if you knew this, the journey of seeking abdominal success is a common one across all people. Science is showing this now. Here's a scientific chart. See? Scientific chart. I told you. Age across the bottom, and then percent caring about abs going up in the vertical. And you can see sort of your desire increases as you age up through about your early 20s. And then there's this key point that happens where it plummets called marriage, right? You know that's true. Key point called marriage. But there's a second key point that happens right around the age of 30, and that's where you discover that your abs are part of something called your core. And the core, you need to function. Like, in order to not get out of bed in the morning and have your back hurt. You know, that was my discovery moment. I was like, I just turned 30, and I woke up out of bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, my back hurts. What is happening? Google it, and I have the core. Important for my success. Interesting. But we all know this. We know this about physical strength. If you want to be strong, you need to invest time, you need to invest money, and then you can buy a workout DVD and then do it, right? Or join a gym and then go. But we think spirituality is different. That finding God should be different than this. We think that we just sit somewhere and we just kind of wait, and then the magic spiritual fairy comes along, and we hope just sprinkles some stuff on us, and we get to know God. It doesn't work that way. If you want to find an answer to your question, you have to go looking. You have to invest time and money. It's a self-funded treasure hunt. That's really what it is. And this isn't easy for me. Time, I read this frustrating verse. David, who we talked about earlier, actually said this in the Bible, where he's talked about seeking God early in the morning. As difficult for me. The morning, I hate the mornings. Mornings are awful. Like, the only good thing is coffee, right? I am not at all a morning person. If you don't believe me, you can ask my mom. She would totally tell you that.
Like morning? No.
Thanks, Mom. I'm not a morning person. I'm just not. It's terrible. But for 14 years, I've been doing this experiment. Not every day, but waking up early in the morning and then trying to find God, investing time in finding Him, sacrificing sleep, investing time to try to find Him. Like a real person, like I wake up and have coffee and try to have coffee with God, like to talk to Him and ask Him questions, and to write down what I think the answers might be, and then to go look in the Bible and see if they match. That's what I do in the mornings. And I'll just tell you, the best days of my life, unilaterally, are days when that's how they started. Those are the best days. Best days. The second area is money. And I know when we talk about money on this stage, like just behind the scenes, we know it. We know it's odd. I know it's odd because you have to question ulterior motives. You just do. I mean, I think that's logical. That's how I function. That's what I used to do. But my wife and I, for about 10 years, we've been seeking God with our money. Testing this other crazy claim God makes where he says, if you'll invest some of your money in the kind of work that I care about, you'll get more of me. You'll get closer to me. He says he'll throw open the floodgates of heaven. And I'll just tell you, that's what we've experienced in our life. That as we've invested money with God, we've felt closer to him. And I don't mean that in like yachts and mansions have fallen out of the sky, because they haven't. I don't think that's what that verse means exactly. I think it means you'll get to know more of God. If you invest in finding him, you will. You will. You know, if you take a friend to coffee, you'll get to know him better. I think that's kind of what he's hinting at. But we know here that's a scary proposition. So about 2 years ago, we were trying to solve this problem. We were asking lots of questions, like, well, how do we help people experiment and get around this whole ulterior motives thing? And so we came up with something called beans and rice. Anybody done beans and rice in here? Beans and rice experiment? It's phenomenal. We did it 2 years ago. We raised like $373,000. Last year, raised about $500,000. And all that money went out to other people. Because see, what we figured out was like, well, if it's hard for someone to experiment with this if we're saying, just give us your money, trust us. We have no ulterior motives. That's really difficult. So what if we gave all the money away? Like, what if we didn't keep any of it? And we didn't. What if we gave it all away? So we did that, and we said, you know, not just that. Another barrier is kind of like this: just give money and like on into infinity forever. Well, that's a high bar. Let's make it 1 week. Just for 1 week, try this. And then we went, you know, another challenge is kind of finding the money to do it. Found money is difficult, at least in my life. I don't know, maybe I'm unique. Found money is difficult. So what if we all, I don't know, ate beans and rice for a week, and then what we spent on beans and rice versus what we would have spent on groceries, like we gave that chunk away. That's what we used to experiment. And so that's what we did, and it was just kind of incredible. If you were one of the folks who gave 2 years ago to that, you did that experiment, some of that money went to something called Preschool Promise. I want to show you an update about what's been happening. Check this out.
Here we are together.
This is a quality preschool in Roselawn run by the YMCA. Children who come here for a year or two leave here ready for kindergarten. Research shows kids who attend quality preschool read well by 3rd grade, graduate high school, and are better prepared for the future.
The Preschool Promise is an independent initiative to help all families pay for a quality-rated preschool experience for their 3- and 4-year-olds.
Which one is all, Lavarian? Very good.
Lavarian, in the blue striped shirt, will start kindergarten this fall. He's here because his guardian, his grandfather, knows preschool is important. Quality preschool is expensive. Lavarian's grandpa could not afford to send him here full-time on his own, but Lavarian was able to receive a scholarship from the Preschool Promise pilot, funded by a donation from Crossroads Church.
Trying to get you this week to do a beans and rice fast.
Church members ate rice and beans for a week and donated what they saved on food. The Crossroads donation funded 34 preschool scholarships, including the one for Lavarian.
For him to have a good life. Because I'm not going to be around all the time. So I want him prepared to be independent and, to be able to care for himself.
Preschool is the foundation of every child's success. Preschool today, success tomorrow.
That's amazing. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let me ask you folks who were part of that 2 years ago, did watching that video make you feel happy? Like, did it bring a little joy to your life? Did it maybe make you feel closer to God? There's something that happens like when you invest in the stuff that he cares about, you kind of feel like he's here and you're partnering with him and stuff. You feel closer. You find him in a way. And I'm just telling you, whatever your questions are about God, you're going to have to invest to find answers. You're going to have to self-fund it. You might do something this week. You might consider invest $10 in 2 hours towards your question. $10 in 2 hours. Take a friend to coffee who's farther along and buy their coffee. That'll get them to go, you know? Buy a book and then read it. You have to do something. Here's the last thing about seeking. Seeking never stops. Very last thing. Seeking never stops. Seeking is not a phase that you pass through and arrive at right answers and then hold them. Seeking is a skill you acquire and you never want to stop, because here's the truth. I don't know when your seeking moment is coming. Brian talked about walls last week, that we all kind of hit these walls that can propel us into asking questions about God. I didn't know that one of those was coming for me this summer around prayer. I didn't. I wasn't expecting it. But you want to have this skill, and you want to not stop. You remember John from earlier, my friend John, 27, drummer, brown hair, witty. John's a real person. He's actually one of my seeking heroes, because John hit an incredible wall. It's awful. It's kind of the trifecta of tragedy. His dad got terminal brain cancer, his mom got cancer, and John got cancer all at the same time. Crazy. Hit a wall. And his textbook faith that he had at that point in his life was no good. The answers that he had about God failed. And so he wadded them up and he threw them away. Very logical, by the way. Very logical. But here's what's special about John. John didn't stop. He spent about 5 years sort of limping along, and but he came back. He started asking questions because he realized, I now have these unanswered questions. In absence of my textbook answers, I have unanswered questions. And so he began asking them to some folks around here. And he wasn't just asking questions, he invested in finding answers. He took a risk. He did this crazy experiment for 30 days. I want to read you what he says about it. He says, last fall, I went on the most profound spiritual journey of my life. Every morning, I woke up, went to my living room, and knelt down and prayed to God. I kept it short and sweet, mostly because it felt so strange. Then, after I'd finished praying, I asked God, what can I do today to be more like you? And for 10 minutes, I just tried to listen. Quietly and patiently, I did this every day for 30 days, and I heard something every time. Whatever God said, I did. Even if it was unclear or confusing, I did it. Some days it was downright cryptic, but I still tried. I think I flat out got it wrong a few times. Sometimes it was something to do immediately, like run, so I ran. Sometimes it was an opportunity he wanted me to seize that day, like make a change and you'll see me. So that day I broke the pattern, changed something, and God showed up in the moment. And this has continued for John. He's investing time and he's finding God. He's going to the next spot. It's bravery. He's taking a brave step and seeing if he can find God. He's making a risk of an investment. And I love that about him. I just want to tell you, people like John who found God, people like David in the Bible, thousands of people here in this room who have found God, they've all approached him the same way, as a dynamic, real person to be known. They've asked dangerous questions, and they've invested to find answers, and they have. And you can too. If you seek God, you will find him. You really, 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 really will. If you seek God, you'll find him. I want to read this verse to you again from Luke. And if you can, imagine in your head, this is Jesus talking to you, because it is. He is talking to you. He says, so I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. You want to seek? You want to find? Go after God. Ask him your unsaved questions. Hunt for answers, and you'll find them. I want to pray for you. And I want to do something that might feel a little unsafe and kind of old school. If you would, I want everybody in this room, just bow your head and close your eyes. Just do one of these. That'd be great. It'll help your neighbors. If you're somebody who you want to say today to God, I really want to find you. I don't want any more textbook answers. I want to actually know you. I want to go seeking and find you. Just put your hand up a little bit. It doesn't have to be high. Just as a way for you to communicate to God. I'm doing this unsafe thing now because I want to find you. I want to find you. and I want to pray for you. Father, would you help us find you? Would you be the God who can be found? And I just bless you because that's what I found you to be. And I ask in the same way that I've been finding you, that John's been finding you, that David's been finding you, that people all throughout history have been finding you, that folks with their hands raised, they'd find you too. God, give us the bravery to ask you our real questions. Give us the bravery to invest to find answers. God, when we walk out of this room, we want to walk out and we want to encounter you in a real way because life is hard and we need a real God. Would you be a real God for us? Amen.
Let's sing those words that we sang earlier. Seek the Lord. Seek the Lord and he will be found. And call upon him, he will draw near. Seek the Lord and he will be found. He shows us mercy and compassion. Whoa. Sing it one more time. Seek the Lord. And seek the Lord and he will be found. And call upon him, he will draw near. Yeah. And seek the Lord and he will be found. He shows us mercy and compassion. Oh. Keep asking questions this week. We'll see you next time.